I never thought I'd find myself in this position, sharing my heartbreak with strangers online. But here I am, and I have to admit, the whole situation feels surreal. Let me take you back to the beginning of it all, to the life I thought I had with my wife, Sarah. Sarah and I had been married for 4 years. We met at a mutual friend's party, and I was instantly drawn to her. She had this energy. It was infectious. We clicked immediately and fell into a whirlwind romance. The first few years were blissful, filled with laughter, adventures, and those late-night talks that seemed to stretch forever. Sure, we had our arguments like any couple, but they were always resolved with a kiss and a promise to try harder. However, things started to shift about 6 months ago. At first, it was subtle. Sarah became more distant, sometimes lost in her thoughts. She often had late nights at work, which I accepted initially because she was ambitious. But then little things started to bother me. The way she'd look at her phone with this guilty expression, or how she'd suddenly need me time on weekends when we used to do everything together. I brushed it off, life gets in the way, right? But deep down, a nagging feeling began to take root. The first real sign something was off came when I noticed a change in her behavior. One night I was trying to enjoy our usual movie night, but she was on her phone more than watching the screen. She kept giggling at something, and when I asked her who was so funny, she snapped back, "It's just a friend." She then rolled her eyes as if my curiosity was an inconvenience. I felt a pang of discomfort but dismissed it as me overreacting. Then came the more concrete evidence. I'm not proud of it, but I started looking through her things. I found a receipt in her jacket pocket for a restaurant I didn't recognize. It wasn't just the place. It was the fact that she hadn't mentioned it. I confronted her, and she said it was just a dinner with a coworker. "You know how work can be," she said, her eyes darting away from mine, avoiding my gaze. Despite my gut feeling, I wanted to believe her, but everything changed when I found a message on her phone one evening while she was in the shower. I swear, the air in the room thickened and I felt like I was suffocating. The message was from someone named Brian, and let's just say the content was far from professional. It was flirty, inappropriate even. I froze, feeling bile rise in my throat. How could she do this to me? I decided to play it cool. I didn't want to confront her immediately. I wanted to gather more evidence. I wanted the truth to be undeniable. For the next few days, I watched her like a hawk, picking up on every little detail that seemed off. She was always on her phone, typing away and getting these weird notifications. The final straw was when I saw her get a text that read, "Can't wait to see you tonight, miss you." I couldn't take it anymore. Confronting her was a mix of anger and despair. The moment she walked through the door that evening, I knew I had to say something. The moment felt electric, charged with emotions. "Sarah, we need to talk," I said. She shifted nervously, her face paling as she sensed the gravity of my tone. "About what?" she replied, feigning innocence, but I knew better. "About Brian," I said, keeping my voice steady but filled with hurt. Her reaction was immediate and defensive. "What are you talking about?" She shot back, her tone sharp. I could see her mind racing, searching for a plausible excuse. But I wasn't going to let her talk her way out of this. I laid it all out, the messages, the receipts, the change in her behavior. As I spoke, I watched her face morph from confusion to anger. "You went through my stuff. You've got no right," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "I had to know the truth, Sarah. You've been hiding something from me." Her response was chilling. She crossed her arms, leaning back as if she were trying to distance herself from the conversation. "Maybe you're just overreacting. You always accused me of cheating in your sleep, remember?" She shot back, trying to twist the narrative. It was the first time I'd heard that. She mentioned it in passing during an argument months ago, but I had dismissed it as her trying to deflect blame. "Don't try to turn this around. I found the messages, Sarah. You're cheating on me, it's right there in black and white." Her eyes darted away again. I could see she was trying to come up with a lie, some excuse to make it all disappear. Then she leaned in and kissed me, a desperate attempt to erase the accusations. "Forget this, let's just enjoy tonight," she said, her voice low. I pulled away, my heart racing, but not from affection. No, this was anger mixed with betrayal. I couldn't believe what was happening. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was crumbling right in front of me, and I was left standing here shattered. The emotional impact hit hard as I grappled with my feelings. I was in shock, feeling like a stranger in my own home. How could she do this to us? I wanted to scream, to cry, to make sense of everything that had just unfolded, but I was too numb. In that moment, I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't just let this slide. I had to think about my future, about what I wanted. Would I confront her again, or would I start formulating a plan for revenge? The options swirled in my mind as I prepared for the emotional roller coaster that lay ahead. Little did I know, this was only the beginning of a tumultuous journey filled with deceit, betrayal, and ultimately, a quest for revenge that would shake the very foundation of our marriage. The days that followed my confrontation with Sarah felt like a blur. I went through the motions of life, but my mind was racing, constantly replaying our argument. Her kiss lingered on my lips, an illusion of affection that felt more like a bullet shot straight through my heart. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. The tension in our home became palpable. We existed in silence, the kind that was heavy and suffocating. Sarah treated me as if I were the enemy. She'd throw out passive-aggressive comments, little jabs that stung. It was clear she was on the defensive, and that only fueled my anger. How could she act like she was the victim when she was the one betraying our vows? I needed to gather more information, to understand the depth of her betrayal. It was like a sickness. This need to know everything. So I started to play detective. I set up a hidden camera in the living room, something I'd seen in a movie once, and I hoped it would give me the evidence I needed. My heart raced every time I thought of the possibility of catching her in the act, but the thought of what I might witness also terrified me. For days, I watched the footage, hoping for some sign of remorse or guilt on her part. But no, Sarah went about her life as if nothing was wrong. She'd laugh with her friends over the phone, talk about work, and even cook meals for us like nothing had changed. It was maddening to see her so carefree while I was drowning in despair. Then one night I caught something that made my blood run cold. I was watching the footage when Sarah received a text from Brian. Instinctively, I felt my stomach drop. I leaned closer to the screen, my heart pounding. This was it. I was about to find out what she would say to him. I was filled with a mixture of anger and excitement, the kind that comes from knowing you're about to unveil the truth. She picked up her phone and I could barely breathe as I watched her fingers dance across the screen. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Just tell him I'm working late." The message read. I could barely contain my rage. How could she be so brazen? The thought that she was planning to sneak off to see this guy while lying to my face made me feel sick. That night, I decided I was done sitting around, waiting for her to come clean. I had to confront her again, but this time it would be different. I felt empowered, fueled by the anger swirling inside me. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me any longer. When Sarah walked through the door that evening, I was ready. "We need to talk. Again," I said, my voice firm and steady. I could see immediately that she was apprehensive, her eyes darting around as if looking for an escape. "About what this time?" she asked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "About your plans with Brian," I shot back, holding my ground. "What do you mean?" She tried to play it off, but I could see the flicker of fear in her eyes. "I saw the messages, Sarah. You're seeing him tomorrow night and you're lying to me about working late. This ends now," I stated, making sure to keep my voice calm. Her expression morphed from defiance to panic in an instant. "You're being ridiculous. I can't believe you're still on this," she exclaimed, her anger rising. "I'm being ridiculous. You're the one cheating on your husband," I replied, unable to keep my voice down any longer. She tried to deflect again, throwing accusations back at me. "Maybe if you weren't so paranoid all the time, I wouldn't have to hide things from you." I could feel my blood boiling. "You think this is my fault? You're the one who chose to betray me. You think I wanted any of this?" As I spoke, I noticed her attempting to put on an act, trying to mask her guilt with bravado. But I was done with her games. I had a plan forming in my mind. A plan that would not only expose her lies, but also serve as a revenge that would sting just as much as her betrayal stung me. "Listen, I don't want to fight anymore. I just want honesty," I said, shifting my approach slightly. She scoffed. "Honesty? You mean your twisted version of it? You think you're the only one who gets to dictate what this marriage looks like?" Sarah, you need to understand this isn't just some version of honesty. You're ruining everything we built together. You're ruining us. The weight of my words hung between us, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of remorse in her eyes, but then she quickly masked it, her expression hardening again. I don't have to explain myself to you. Fine. If she wanted to play it that way, I'd let her think she was in control. I would bide my time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. The next day, I decided to put my plan into action. I called a friend of mine who had some experience in this sort of thing. His name was Mark, and he had a knack for getting information. I explained the situation to him, and he was more than willing to help. Just give me a couple of days, and I'll get you everything you need to know about Brian. We'll expose this whole thing, he said, his voice filled with conviction. I felt a rush of relief wash over me. As the days went by, I noticed Sarah getting ready for her work night. She was dressed to the nines, looking more like she was heading out on a date than to the office. I felt the anger bubbling within me again, but I kept my composure. That night, she left the house, and I felt my heart race. I knew I had to act fast. I waited for Mark to come through with his intel, and when he did, I'd be ready. The plan was to confront her with all the evidence, to unearth the truth in front of her, and to let her see how her actions would come back to haunt her. I had an unexpected calmness wash over me. I was determined to not let her get away with this. I was tired of being the victim in this story. It was time for the tables to turn. The night dragged on as I paced around the house, waiting for Sarah to return. Each tick of the clock felt like a countdown to the inevitable confrontation that loomed ahead. I could feel the adrenaline surging through my veins. I was both terrified and exhilarated at what I was about to do. I needed to be prepared for whatever her reaction might be, not just surprise or anger, but maybe even a hint of remorse. As I waited, I replayed my plan over and over in my mind. I had evidence all set to go. Mark had come through for me big time. He managed to dig up some dirt on Brian, pictures, texts, and even a couple of social media posts that would paint a clear picture of his relationship with Sarah. If I presented this to her, she wouldn't have any choice but to face the truth. Finally, I heard the front door open. I quickly turned off the TV and put my phone away, pretending to be engrossed in a book. I wanted to give her the impression that everything was normal, that I was oblivious. "Hey, I'm back," Sarah called out, her voice bright and chipper, but I could hear the slight tremor beneath it. "Sorry, work was crazy. You would believe it." I looked up from my book, forcing a smile. "Really, did you manage to finish that project?" "Yeah, it was a long night," she replied, tossing her purse onto the couch. I could see her eyes dart towards me, trying to gauge my mood. "What about you? Did you have a good evening?" "Just the usual," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "But I've been thinking a lot about us." Her expression changed slightly, a flicker of concern crossed her face. "Us? What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. "I mean about honesty and trust. You know how important they are to me." She rolled her eyes, but I didn't let her dismiss me this time. "I mean it, Sarah. I think we've lost sight of that in our marriage." She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor as if she was weighing her options. "You're being dramatic. I told you I'm just busy with work." "Busy with Brian," I shot back, unable to hold my tongue. Her eyes widened, and for a split second I could see a flash of panic. "What are you talking about?" I stood up, feeling the power of the moment surge through me. "I mean the guy you've been texting and hiding from me, the one you've been lying about." Her expression hardened again, but I didn't give her a chance to deflect. "I have proof. I know everything. Proof. You're just going to believe whatever you want to believe." She snapped, crossing her arms defiantly. "No, Sarah," I said, my voice steady. "I'm going to show you what reality looks like." I reached for my phone, pulling up the photographs Mark had sent me. "Look at this," I said, navigating through the images. I could feel my pulse racing as I handed her the phone. "This is Brian, and these are the messages. You think I'm paranoid? Look at what you've been doing behind my back." She took the phone reluctantly, her face losing color as she scanned through the photos and messages. The silence in the room was deafening, filled only by the sound of her sharp intake of breath. I watched as her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to finally, a cold realization. "How did you get these?" she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "Does it matter? You should be more concerned about what this means for us, I replied, my heart racing. Her eyes darted from the phone to me and I saw the panic rise in her. You don't understand, I was going to tell you, I swear. Tell me what, that you're cheating on me, that you've been lying to me for months. I shot back, my voice rising with each word. You think that's something you can just brush under the rug? I didn't mean for it to happen. He's just someone I can talk to. You don't listen to me anymore, she exclaimed, her tone defensive. Someone you can talk to? Sarah, this is much more than talking, I said, my frustration bubbling over. I didn't want to hurt you, she pleaded, her facade cracking. I thought it was just a phase, a mistake. I was lonely. You spend all this time at work and I just needed someone. I felt like I'd been slapped across the face. So, you decided to cheat instead of communicating. You thought that was the solution. I know I messed up, but it's not what you think. It didn't mean anything. She fired back, but I could see the cracks in her armor. Not what I think, then what do you think it is? Because it looks pretty clear to me. The fight seemed to leave her. She sank into the couch, her eyes glassy with unshed tears. I don't know, she admitted, her voice trembling. I messed up, but I love you. I don't want to lose you. You love me, I echoed, incredulous. Is that what you call this? You think love is enough to justify what you did? Please, I'll do anything, just give me another chance, she begged, her voice breaking. I felt that familiar tug of sorrow, the part of me that wanted to forgive her, to believe that we could fix this. But I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal gnawing at me. You don't get it, do you? This isn't something you can just fix with empty promises. You've broken my trust, and that's not something you can take back with a kiss or tear. As I looked at her, the reality of our situation hit me. I had a choice to make. Did I want to fight for this marriage, knowing it would take immense work, or was it time to cut my losses and walk away from the person I once loved? I don't know if I can forgive you, I said, my voice steady but edged with pain. Her face twisted in despair, and I watched as the facade crumbled. This was the moment of truth, and the silence that followed felt like a lifetime. I stepped back, trying to process the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. I need time to think, I managed to say. As I walked away, I could hear her sobbing softly, and a part of me wanted to comfort her, but I had to be strong. I had to think clearly about what came next. The betrayal was fresh, and I couldn't ignore the hurt that had settled deep in my chest. After everything we'd been through together, I never imagined we'd end up here, lost in a mess of lies and deceit. How had we become strangers to each other? In that moment, I realized that I had to decide what I truly wanted. This was more than just about revenge. It was about finding my own closure. I'd have to face the storm ahead and make a decision that would define not just our future but my own. The path forward was shrouded in uncertainty, but I knew one thing. Things could never go back to the way they were. The days following my confrontation with Sarah felt like an emotional battlefield. I moved through our home like a ghost, trapped in a fog of betrayal and confusion. Every corner I turned reminded me of the life we shared, the love we built, and how quickly it all shattered into pieces. I couldn't escape the memories of our laughter, our inside jokes, and the dreams we had. I took some time off work, needing space to think. With every passing hour, I felt the weight of my decision pressing down on me. Sarah was desperate for my forgiveness, and part of me longed to give it to her. But how could I? Trust was a fragile thing, and she had shattered mine into irreparable fragments. I spent hours talking to Mark about my situation. He was incredulous at how naive I had been to ignore the signs, and in his straightforward way, he helped me see the bigger picture. You deserve better than this, man, he said, leaning back in his chair. You need to think about what you want for your future. Do you want to build a life with someone who would betray you like this? His words echoed in my mind. I thought of all the times I had brushed off my instincts, convinced that Sarah was just stressed or busy. I had made excuses for her behavior, thinking it was a phase. I had dismissed my feelings of unease as overreactions. I had been so desperate to believe in our love that I had ignored the truth slapping me in the face. One evening, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. As the cool night air washed over me, I reflected on everything that had transpired. I felt anger bubbling up again, but it was different this time. It was a sense of empowerment, a realization that I wouldn't let Sarah's actions dictate my happiness any longer. I was standing at the park when I received a text from Sarah. Can we please talk? I'm scared. Each word felt like a dagger twisting in my gut. I felt a pang of sympathy, but I had to remind myself that she had created this situation. She was the one who had caused this chaos, and she needed to face the consequences of her actions. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the screen. Where do you want to meet? I eventually replied. She suggested the coffee shop around the corner from our place, the same one we had frequented during our early days of dating. The memories flooded back as I typed my agreement. It was almost poetic how we were returning to the place where it all began, but this time everything felt tainted. When I arrived at the cafe, I found Sarah already seated at a table, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug, her face a mix of hope and despair. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for the conversation that lay ahead. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I knew I had to be strong. As I approached, she looked up, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Thank you for coming," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I know I messed up, I just wanted to explain, please." I sat down across from her, the distance between us feeling monumental. "Explain what, Sarah? How you betrayed my trust?" "I was lonely," she exclaimed, her voice rising slightly. "You were so focused on work and I felt neglected. I thought I could handle it, that it was just a fling." "So you thought cheating was the answer? You didn't even try to communicate with me?" Shot back, unable to keep my frustration at bay. I know I messed up, but I love you and I want to fix this," she pleaded, her eyes searching mine for any sign of hope. I felt the anger ebb slightly, replaced by something more painful: sadness. "Love doesn't excuse betrayal, Sarah. You've hurt me in a way that's hard to come back from. I don't know if I can trust you again." "I'll do anything. I'll go to counseling. I'll be better, I promise." I wanted to believe her, I really did. But with each promise she made, I felt the weight of doubt pressed down harder. "What do you expect from me? To just forget about everything? To pretend like this did happen?" "No, I just want a chance to show you I can be the wife you deserve. I never meant to hurt you," she said, desperation creeping into her voice. "Then why did you? Why not just talk to me? I would have listened," I said, feeling the ache in my chest deepen. "I thought I could handle it on my own," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I was strong enough to keep it separate from us, but I was wrong." The sincerity in her voice tugged at my heart, but I had to remain guarded. "You may have convinced yourself that this was just a mistake, but it's not. You chose to cheat. You chose to betray our marriage. You made a decision that has changed everything. Please just give me one more chance. I'll prove to you that I can be better. We can work this out together," she said, her voice cracking as tears streamed down her cheeks. I felt the walls I had built around my heart beginning to waver. I wanted to reach across the table and reassure her, but I couldn't shake the bitterness of her betrayal. "I need to think about it, Sarah. I can't just jump back into this. You've turned our lives into chaos, and I need to figure out what I want," I finally said, my voice steady but filled with pain. She stared at me, and I could see the hope begin to fade from her expression. "I understand," she said, her voice hollow. "I just wish I could take it all back." "Me too," I replied softly, my heart heavy with the weight of our broken relationship. We sat in silence, the air thick with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. I could see her struggling to hold back her tears, but I was equally grappling with my own emotions. Part of me wanted to comfort her, but another part wanted to be firm and not let her off the hook. As I left the cafe that night, I felt like I was walking away from a piece of my heart. I needed to take the time to assess everything that had happened, to really think about whether I could forgive her and rebuild our marriage. But more than that, I needed to decide whether I truly wanted to keep fighting for someone who had broken my trust. Was I willing to lay my heart on the line again, or was it time to walk away and start anew? That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, contemplating my future. The shadows danced on the walls, mirroring my inner turmoil. I had so many questions, but no clear answers. I could feel the pain and the betrayal clawing at me, but beneath it all, I sensed a flicker of strength emerging. It was time to make a decision. I needed to figure out what I truly wanted. I would either find a way to rebuild and forgive, or choose to walk away and reclaim my life. The journey ahead would be difficult, but I could no longer allow someone else to dictate my happiness. It was time for me to take control. For the next few days, I wrestled with my emotions like a tangle of ropes. I couldn't escape the thoughts of Sarah, of our marriage, and the betrayal that had turned my world upside down. Each moment felt like an internal battle, a push and pull between love and hurt, hope and despair. I felt like I was stuck in a loop, replaying our conversations, the way her face had crumbled when faced with the truth, and the desperate pleas she had made for a second chance. I spent hours talking to Mark, who was convinced that I deserved better than someone who would cheat on me. You need to think about your future, man. Do you want to be with someone who disrespected you like this? You've got to put yourself first, he urged, and part of me agreed wholeheartedly. But there was another part, the part that had loved Sarah for so long, that couldn't help but remember the good times we shared. On the 5th day after our cafe meeting, I made the decision to confront her again. I wanted clarity, and I knew I wouldn't find it sitting in silence. I texted her, "Can we talk tonight? I think it's time to decide what's next." When she replied affirmatively, I felt a mix of dread and anticipation. I was ready to lay everything out on the table to finally come to terms with the reality of our situation. I wanted to make it clear that I wouldn't be her doormat, but I also needed to understand if there was a path forward for us. That evening, I set the stage for our conversation. I lit a couple of candles, hoping to create an atmosphere that was less tense, more inviting. I wanted to have an honest discussion, not just an argument filled with accusations. As I waited for Sarah to arrive, I felt my heartbeat quickening, the anticipation of the confrontation bubbling beneath the surface. When she walked in, I could see the tension etched on her face, but there was also a glimmer of hope. "Hey," she said softly, her eyes searching mine for any hint of my mood. "Hey," I replied, gesturing for her to sit down. "I think we need to be honest about what we want moving forward." She nodded, a slight tremor in her hands. "I agree. I've been thinking a lot, too." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I want to be upfront about where I stand. What you did hurt me deeply, and I don't know if I can trust you again. It feels like you've taken something irreplaceable from me." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. It was a mistake, and I regret it every single day." "Regret doesn't change the reality of what happened," I replied, my tone firm but devoid of anger. "It doesn't change the fact that you chose to be with someone else instead of talking to me. That's what I can't wrap my head around." She nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. "I understand that, and I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness, but I want you to know how much I've been reflecting on my actions. I've realized how much I value what we have, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right." "Talk is cheap, Sarah," I reminded her, feeling a pang of anger rise. "You can say you want to change, but I need to see real action behind those words." "I will. I'll go to therapy, I'll communicate better. I promise to work on myself and our relationship. Just please don't give up on me," she pleaded, her voice thick with emotion. "Here's the thing," I said slowly, weighing my words. "I need time to think about this. Even if I wanted to forgive you, I don't know if I can. Trust takes time to rebuild, and I'm not ready to jump into that yet." She looked crushed, her face falling in a way that made my heart ache. "I understand. I'll give you all the time you need. I just hope it's enough. I want you to know that I'm not making this decision lightly. We've built a life together, and I don't want to throw that away. But I also can't ignore the hurt I feel. It's a process, and I need to figure out if I can move past this." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our conversation hanging in the air. I could see the battle within her, fear of losing everything that we had built, and the realization of the gravity of her actions. "I love you," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, "and I'll wait for you no matter how long it takes." Her words hung in the air, a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of caution. "Love isn't enough if trust is broken," I replied gently, forcing myself to remain steadfast. "Then what can I do to show you I mean it? I'm willing to fight for you, for us," she said, her determination shining through her tears. "I think you need to focus on yourself first," I suggested, feeling a glimmer of hope amidst my uncertainty. "If you can prove that you can grow from this, then maybe, just maybe, we can talk about rebuilding." "Okay," she agreed, her voice steadier now. "I'll do whatever it takes." As we wrapped up our conversation, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. We weren't immediately at the end, but maybe we were at the beginning of something new. I still had my doubts, but I also recognized that change takes time, and I needed to allow both of us the space to breathe. In the days that followed, I focused on my own healing. I delved into hobbies that had been neglected and spent time with friends who had always been my support system. I began seeing a counselor as well, trying to process the whirlwind of emotions I had been feeling. I wanted to understand how to navigate this new chapter, regardless of whether it included Sarah or not. I had my moments of weakness, where the memories would flood back in, and I felt the sting of betrayal all over again. But slowly, I started to regain a sense of myself. I was no longer just Sarah's husband. I was me, David, a person with dreams, desires, and the ability to choose what was best for my future. One evening, as I was walking home from therapy, I received a text from Sarah. "Just checking in. I'm still working on myself. I miss you." A part of me wanted to respond immediately to reassure her that I was thinking of her too, but I paused, letting my emotions settle. I took a moment to reflect on what I wanted to say. "Thanks for reaching out. I'm working on myself too. Let's meet up this weekend." As I hit send, I felt a mix of apprehension, excitement. I was ready to see her again, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. We had a long way to go, but for the first time in a while, I felt a sense of hope that perhaps, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but I was committed to taking it one step at a time. I was not only fighting for our relationship, but also reclaiming my own identity. And in that realization, I found a sense of peace. Whatever lay ahead, I would face it head on. We would either rebuild or part ways, but I was determined to forge my path, whatever that may look like. As the weekend approached, I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. I was preparing for our meeting with cautious optimism. I had spent the last few days focusing on myself, trying to process everything that had happened, and figuring out what I truly wanted. I had no idea if Sarah had made any real progress, but I was ready to listen. When we met at our favorite cafe, the atmosphere felt charged with unspoken tension. Sarah sat at a table, nervously fidgeting with her hands. Her eyes lit up when she saw me, but I could also see traces of worry etched on her face. I took a seat across from her, and for a moment we simply observed each other, trying to gauge what the other was feeling. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice slightly shaky. "I've been thinking a lot about everything." "Me too," I replied, forcing a smile to ease the tension. "I want to hear what you've been working on." She took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I started seeing a therapist, and it's been eye-opening. I've realized how much I've neglected my feelings and how I handled our relationship. I've been working on my communication skills and trying to understand why I made the choices I did." I listened intently, trying to assess the sincerity in her words. "That's a good start, but it's going to take more than just a quick fix. This is about rebuilding trust, and that doesn't happen overnight." "I know. I'm committed to this," she assured me, her eyes earnest. "I want to show you that I can be better and that I can be the partner you deserve. Talking is one thing, but I need to see action to believe it," I said, trying to set the boundaries I needed to feel secure. "I understand," she replied, her voice steady. "I'm prepared to prove it to you, and I want to be transparent about everything moving forward." We spent the next hour talking, sharing the highs and lows of our respective journeys. I told her about my counseling sessions and how they helped me understand my feelings better. I shared my fears about not being able to trust her again and how that trust was the foundation of our relationship. "I realize I've taken that for granted," she said, tears glistening in her eyes. "I wish I could take it all back. I wish I had communicated my feelings before it led to this disaster." "I do too," I replied, feeling the bittersweet pang of nostalgia. "But we can't change the past. All we have is now and the future we can choose to build." As our conversation flowed, I began to feel a flicker of hope sparking within me. It was fragile but present. We were talking openly for the first time in what felt like an eternity, and it felt good. But I remained cautious, aware that one conversation wouldn't erase the pain and betrayal we had endured. "Do you think we can really work through this?" Sarah asked, her voice almost a whisper. "I want to try," I said, my heart pounding. "But it's going to take time, effort, and a lot of honesty. I can't promise anything right now, but I'm open to seeing where this goes." She nodded, her expression filled with gratitude, though the uncertainty lingered. "That's all I can ask for right now. I'm willing to wait as long as it takes for you to feel comfortable again." As we talked, I started to envision a future where we could rebuild, but I also recognized that I needed to keep my own independence. I didn't want to rush back into anything, but I was willing to explore the possibility of healing together. Our meeting came to an end, and as I walked her to her car, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. There was still a long road ahead, but taking this first step felt like progress. We had a chance to redefine our relationship, not just as husband and wife, but as individuals who had learned valuable lessons from heartbreak. "I'll see you soon," she asked as she turned to face me, her eyes hopeful. "Yeah, we can talk again next week," I replied with a tentative smile. As she drove away, I felt a mixture of emotions. Part of me was terrified of the uncertainty that lay ahead, but another part felt empowered. I was reclaiming my narrative. I was finally putting my needs and boundaries first. In the days that followed, I focused on myself. I set small goals, taking care of my health, pursuing hobbies, and spending time with friends. I knew I had to be strong, whether or not Sarah was part of my life moving forward. As the weeks turned into months, I started seeing tangible changes in our communication. Sarah was genuinely working on herself, and I could see the effort she was putting into our relationship. It was a slow process, but I began to feel snippets of that love I had once cherished. We were learning to be honest with each other, not just about the big things, but about the little everyday frustrations too. It was refreshing to have open dialogues instead of avoiding conflicts. I realized that rebuilding trust meant not only addressing the past, but also nurturing the present. In the end, I understood that healing doesn't happen in a straight line. It's messy, complicated, and often painful. But with patience and genuine effort from both sides, it was possible to create something new from the ashes of betrayal. I had faced my demons and came out stronger, with or without Sarah. I learned the importance of communication, the power of forgiveness, and the necessity of self-love. Regardless of where our relationship would lead, I was committed to finding my happiness, even if it meant parting ways. As I lay in bed one night, reflecting on everything that had transpired, I felt a sense of peace. I wouldn't let fear hold me back anymore. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that I had the strength to navigate it. And with that sense of acceptance, I finally felt free. In reclaiming my life, I was opening doors to new possibilities and, for the first time in a long time, I was excited about the future.